This excerpt was taken from the Full and Bloom interview with BulletBoys guitarist Mick Sweda. You can listen to the entire interview at fullandbloom.com. Click the link in the description. How did Marq retain ownership of the BulletBoys name?
Well, by the time 1993 came around and our third record was out and we were promoting it and trying to get some legs under it, we did a show at the Palace and we were sound checking. And I remember that he was late, obviously, as usual, and we're standing around. And when he finally gets there, he starts going off and berating like all the other successful bands like Warren, Skid Row, and I'm looking out and I'm seeing bands in the audience that are just waiting to sound check. And meanwhile, he's like proselytizing and going off on and
into the mic.
You know, it was. Oh yeah, that was his sound check, right? Just going off on all these other bands and just bitching basically. And I remember thinking, okay, that's it for me. I gathered everybody upstairs. I said, this is it. I'm done. I'll see this record through. I'll promote it. Hopefully it'll do well, but I'm not making any more records with this guy. That was the straw that broke this camel's back. And so, you know, we went out and did dates, and he ended up making a call to Warner Brothers and got the red button pushed on our record. And so it was over in a heartbeat. Everything just sort of fell apart. And
what do you mean? He calls Warner Brothers and gets them to kill the record?
Yeah. He made a call, and he thought he had a friend there, and obviously the friend's going to do its best for the record company. So, you know, the single got killed.
But what good is that? What good is that? I don't even understand the thinking. What good is that going to do? He just wanted to get everybody out of the band, or what?
Welcome to my world, brother. Welcome to basically, you know, from day one of that band till that day, that stuff went on almost endlessly. It was, and the way I say it is like it was just basically damage control from day one for everybody. You know, something was always going on that we had to, you know, try to fix or mend fences or, I mean, and that was just like normal. But try to explain it, no, you won't even begin. But anyway, that was it. And so basically I just wanted to distance myself as much as I could. And we sat down in a meeting. I said, look, I just want my gear, just want my amps and guitars. You take the name, just continue on however you want to do it. I just want to get away. And Jimmy pretty much joined me in that. So, yeah, looking back, it was a bad business decision because, you know, he's basically, as far as I'm concerned, run the name into the ground. And, you know, if you go to the Wikipedia page, there's 60 different players, which says something about his leadership. But, you know, I wish I'd done things differently back then. Maybe I could have, you know, salvaged some sort of integrity with the name.
Did Lonnie leave the band when you and Jimmy leave?
No, he went on with Marq, and I think they toured and see, what I didn't realize at the time, and call this naivete, I thought that they would just record new material and play new material. It turned out that they were just playing all our old songs the whole time and you know, getting bookings as BulletBoys when in fact they weren't. So, you know, that's the part that I wasn't really counting on when I made that deal, in my defense.
I'm assuming that Lonnie leaves at some point, and then from there he forfeits his rights to the name as well.
Yeah, I don't think that even was the case. I think he still is entitled to a percentage of it. But because Mark's been working, you know, steadily, if you want to call it that, he has, I'm not sure what they're called, but it's almost like squatter's rights, right? Like he's been using the name. So it, for all intents and purposes, legally is his. But there was even a point where he didn't own it. Like he didn't let it lapse or something. I don't know what happened, but you know, by virtue of the fact that he's performing under that name, he's entitled to it somehow.
When it lapsed, was there anything like where you guys thought you'd try to get it?
Yeah, but again, you know, in any court, the guy's gonna say who's been using the name, who has been, you know, performing performing under it, that's always going to go to the guy that has been doing that.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, legally, it was just a mess. And, frankly, at this point, I question whether I'd even want to be associated with that name by virtue of what it's been dragged through.
There was a reunion show in 2011. How does that even come together?
Somebody that represented him contacted us and suggested that we, get together and do that. And Jimmy and I, as much as we were against doing that because of, the aforementioned personality conflicts, we made some stipulations. And we figured that, these stipulations would be best for everybody, that he would, we would regain control over the name. He wouldn't be able to go back and do, the scab thing. And, it was all, that gig was based on the assumption that if it all went well, that we would continue on in that regard and try to sort of build the brand back up. Well, the line was around the block, the place was sold out, the gig went well, and none of that came to pass because evidently he feels like he needs to, control the name and not have to deal with other personalities or whatever. I have no idea what his thinking is. But he, quickly went back to doing all these low-dose shows, And then I think it was a couple of years ago at NAMM, someone else yet again tried to, get us together and get him to understand what he was going to need to do in order to make that happen. And once again, he hedged and wasn't willing to do what it would take to, keep this band going in a positive direction. What year was that? I don't know. God, 2016 maybe. It was a few years ago, but it was unfortunate. Everybody seems to understand that this could be a very successful regrouping. But him, he's the only person that doesn't seem to get it. There's no way you guys would do it without having a stake in the ownership of the name? Well, we would have to protect ourselves because, the reality is that we get together and rebuild this brand and make it valuable again. And then he goes off and takes advantage of it, He, fires everybody and then goes off and hires a bunch of guys that he pays virtually nothing. And down the tubes it goes again. Let's face it. It's much more valuable with all of us in it together than it is as it is now. So, again, he seems to be the only person in the business that doesn't understand that or doesn't care about it. Well, probably because, like you said, if he's paying everybody chump change and he still gets the majority of the stake and then having to split things 4 ways, Yeah, it's what's the old saying? Do you want 90% of a grape or 10% of a watermelon?